Kevin here, and I just wanted to do a little episode on trim. And trims, you know, can be expensive to go through and a lot of work to deal with, and so I just wanted to show you a nice meeting in the middle of how to get some trim, save some money, and get through the process without your head exploding. So a couple of pieces of trim that we're working with right now. We're getting them ready as far as finishing them before we put them up on the walls and ceiling. Are these, and we talked a little bit about this in one of the other videos, but this is what's called a 1x2, which is actually 3/4 by about 1.5 inches, and this is a 1x3, which is about 3/4 by 2.5, because they start out rough cut when they first mill them at those dimensions, but when they plane all four sides going through the planer, you lose 1/4 inch all the way around, so you wind up with this smaller dimension, which holds true with all dimensional lumber. Anything called a 2x6 or 2x4 or whatever is actually 1/4 inch off all four sides by the time they get done planing it. So they used to just use them rough cut, but anyway, I digress. So what we're doing is we looked at the trim in the trim department at the big box store, and they had these same dimensions of material with a arguably cleaner grain without a lot of knots, without any chips and dings, so it's a nicer grade of wood for trimming out. However, remind me, Anissa, how much these were there?
97 cents.
No.
Oh, the trim was $2.72.
And we paid 97 cents for these. And then this one was 4 something.
$4.32.
And we paid
$1.67.
$1.67. Okay, so we went over in the lumber department, bought the same dimension of wood, lower grade. So what you're going to wind up with is you're going to see more knots rather than clear grain. It's liable to be a little rougher around the edges. You know, we got some tear out from the planer and you know, some blowouts from the knots. And so all we're really looking for here is a piece of wood that's good on two sides, one flat side and one edge side. You can see this is a real nice piece of wood on this edge. And then on this side, it looks good. We got a little bit of an ink stamp here that we can sand out, but that's no big deal. Those come right off with a sander. We're going to take a sander to the whole thing anyway. We just want to knock all the rough edges and raise grain off of these things so they're a little smoother. And then the same with this. So, you know, as long as you have a knot like this, I think there's, you know, it's kind of interesting to see knots. As long as it's tight, it's not going to fall out. You know, these, I think these look neat in the wood. They're a part of, this is where a tree branch was. And so they're a part of wood. And I mean, you can spend a lot more money, like we just said, buying this wood and getting, you know, something that doesn't show knots, but you're paying for select lumber and you're paying a lot more money.
And this matches the wood that we chose to put on our walls quite nicely with all that naturalness.
Right, so we're getting a lot of the wood grain and some of the knots, and that's, for some people, that's an aesthetic that they like. For other people, they don't like it, so they want something clearer, and so they spend more money on it, and so it's up to you. But I'm just showing you kind of a little hack here. The same dimension of wood in the lumber department is a fraction of the price it is in the trim department for the same dimensions. So you just have to, you know, there's going to be pieces that you're not going to like. So you kind of pick through them. Some of these are going to get cut up because we're going to be, you know, going around corners and things in the house, and so you might even be able to cut around some of the rough spots and not even use it. There's going to be a little bit of waste. And so in this case, what we're doing is we're using this as our crown molding, which is just the perimeter molding around the ceiling and where the wall and ceiling come together. So this is our 1x2 that we're going to run around that. So again, we only see two sides, the face and the bottom edge. That's all we're looking at. So the other two sides can be as ugly as you want them to be because we're not going to see them. And so you just have to decide which of those two faces are the best and finish those two sides, and you can use it. For the 1x3, we're using it in two different places. We're going to go with the seams on the wall joints And again, if you're sheetrocking a house, this doesn't come into play because you're going to have these type seams, but they're going to be mud and taped over and then sanded out and painted and they have a texture and you'll never see them. And so you don't have to do trim here, although people tend to do a trim around the ceiling anyway and down at the bottom of the floor. So we're just having a little trim board that's going to go in here. And we decided to use these 1x3s, and what we're going to do is clear coat these with polyurethane just like we did this. And so they're really not going to stick out. So they'll be noticeable, but we're not going to celebrate them by putting a contrasting color on that's going to really make them stand out. So they're just going to kind of blend in with the surroundings. So that's what's going to be on all the vertical seams out here on the walls. The other thing we're going to use it for is all these horizontal seams up here on the ceiling. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cover these up. We're going to run them all the way from one side of the house to the other. And then as we run into opposing joints like this, we're going to chop pieces off and put them in between the long runs going that way. So we've got a lot of long runs this way and just a couple short runs this way. So we're going to keep these all solid, and then we'll cut up in between for the other joints. And so we're going to have a little bit of a grid.
We're going to celebrate those.
Yes, we're going to stain those a darker color that's going to kind of tie in with the floor. And if we walk outside, I'll show you what we're doing out there. We've got them out here. So this is them showing up from the lumber yard here. There's a dozen boards in that bundle. And so we got a couple bundles of that, and then the smaller ones were loose. So what we did was it came out, we chose the sides that we liked on each board here, and we sanded them with just a little jitterbug handheld sander, and then cleaned the dust off, and then we went ahead and stained them. And this is, what's the name of this stain, Anissa? Early American.
Early American?
So Early American, it's a darker stain. We put it on heavy so that it would be dark. That's what we wanted. And so we picked our faces that we liked. And this is just sitting out here now drying in the sun. We just did these a little while ago. And so we got a stack of those going. Meantime, we came over here and we picked about 11 or 12 of these 1x3s that are going to be going on the ceiling. And they're all sanded down now. And now we're getting ready to stain them. And it's just real easy. It's a Minwax, and so it's got a wax base in it, so it kind of helps to seal it and protect it. And we're just rubbing it on with an old towel, and we're going to put it on heavy again and let it dry out here. Two faces.
Again, we sanded this lightly with a hand sander.
Yeah, I think we used 80 grit.
Yep, and then we used a tack cloth to wipe them off.
Right,
real quick.
get all the dust off of them.
Yeah.
And again, these are, I'd call them number 2 grade. They've got knots, but they're tight, and they've got, maybe a little blowout here and there. We'll probably cut around that when we're using that in there to trim up. This is all going to be on the ceiling in the main room and also in the bathroom. So we're just getting ready to stain it. So we're just rubbing this stain on pretty heavy and letting it soak in so that we get a good dark coat. Real simple process. I have stained countless million board feet of stained wood or something over the years, I guess. I don't know.
Pretty that is.
But it comes out real nice, and we're just keeping
Really
it
nice.
keeping it heavy. Again, this is real easy to do. From here on, we're going to be using a chop saw or a miter saw, whatever you want to call it, just to cut these to length. And we'll be putting them up with a finish nailer with I think it's got an 1.5 inch finish nail coming out of it right now. And real easy to put up. Nothing, I mean, you can, if you want to put a profile on this wood, you could do that. What I mean by profile is if you want to buy a router bit and put a distinct edge over, you can do that, or sometimes you can buy them that way. Again, you're going to spend a lot more money, and we have a bit of a rustic aesthetic to the to the beach house here, and as you can see, we live by the beach. This is our yard. It's sand. My grandkids love this. They can sit down anywhere and play in the yard / sandbox. We live on a sand spit by the beach. So anyway, we picked
That's gorgeous.
the nicest edge here, and we're just going to run some stain on it. And then
But on
these
the
will,
ceiling, we have to do both sides of the edge. Only one side
Right.
will be unstained.
yeah, and same with the wall.
Yeah.
You're going to have
The other pieces are
Both
dark
edges.
brown, so we only had to do 2 sides.
both edges are exposed, correct? And we want to make sure we get that all covered. But it only takes, you know, maybe a minute a board to stain these, and then let them dry in the sun out here. We had a nice warm sunny day, so we're in business. So that's it basically, and then we'll do another video for the window and door treatments, because they're going to have a little bit different profile. We're going to be using similar type of wood, but there's going to be some different dimensions of wood that we use to create the sills and trim and casing around these windows and doors. So we'll get when we get to that point, we'll go over that. But right now, basically, we're just trying to get some of the trim up in some of the areas, because we actually want to start spending the night and starting to live out of the house, even though it's unfinished. And so we're trying to get to that point. We'll probably start sleeping in there during the night, and as soon as we get the shower finished, which is coming up, then we will be able to put the toilet in and a sink, and we'll be able to move in and basically camp in, if you will. So that's a strategy if you're looking to, you know, get out of the rent mortgage trap and you're going to build a small home like this. You can start living out of it long before you ever finish it, if that helps you, as far as not having to pay to live somewhere else and, you know, maybe renting or whatever. We've been living in an RV here next to the house since before we started the house. So we've been able to do that and only, you know, not have to pay to live somewhere else while we're building. But as soon as you can get the house to a livable point, and that it's a little subjective, because it depends on what you consider livable. For me, I could live in it a little rougher than Anissa can, but she's going to want toilet, shower, and a sink, and we can rough it a little bit as far as the kitchen goes. We'll probably toss the refrigerator in there and use a camp stove to cook off of and a microwave, and so we'll be good to go. Not a whole lot different than what we're living in now as far as that goes. So, you know, that gets us out of the RV. We're going to sell it. That recoups some of the cost of building, considerable, about a third, and gets us into the house and start getting to live in the house that we've spent the last almost year working on. So we're pretty excited about that, and being able to sleep in our own bed again and this kind of thing. So anyway, so we're kind of piecing it together a little bit as we go, because again, we're wanting to move into it a little sooner than before it's going to be finished. The exterior, of course, isn't anywhere near being finished yet. We'll get that done before fall. But just a little update and a little kind of a hack on how to come up with, and I think we probably saved, what, about a third of the cost of what we would have spent on trim boards from the trim department anyway. So there you go. I'll see you on the next video.